Hello. I was talking to someone about the Vincentian Canon, the famous way that we determine whether something is Catholic. And I was saying to them how it's not something we use to prove a negative. The way you prove a negative is to assume the conclusion and then show that logically the result is inconsistent. But the Vincentian Canon is a positive way of affirming Catholicism. So, for example, you can affirm with the canon that the Son is consubstantial with the Father, and because that's true, Arianism can't be true, can't be Catholic. That's how you show that Arianism is not Catholic, using the canon. You can't always do that, though, in general. The Vincentian Canon, written by St. Vincent, happened very shortly after the Council of Ephesus in the 5th century. And it was as a result of that council that Vincent was inspired to write that, also considering the Augustinian view on grace as well. That's a different question. But he writes the canon after the Council of Ephesus, and with good reason. If you know it, the Council of Ephesus was the council which condemned Nestorius. And Nestorius essentially said that Our Lady was the mother of Jesus, she was not the mother of God. And therefore what he's essentially saying is that the human nature and the divine nature of our Lord produce separate persons, which are sort of paper-clipped together, as Archbishop Mark Haviland says, which is not true. The council found that there is one person of Christ with two natures, not two persons of Christ, that Christ isn't a duality in himself. Now, that actually had far-reaching consequences, because not only does it give rise to some difficulties that occurred with the Oriental churches and the Coptic churches, where they understand the idea of nature differently, but it also set up a means by which one has to look at the episcopacy of the bishops and understand whether they are orthodox or not. Now, what do I mean by that? Nestorius was the Patriarch of Constantinople, and he held this view that was deemed to be heretical. And the problem with that is that if you've got a major church leader, and the Patriarch of Constantinople is second after Rome, if you've got a church leader who is teaching something that is profoundly different from the Catholic faith, and is requiring that his bishops and priests and all the other clergy under him teach the same thing, then of course that has a big effect on what the laity are being taught and what's happening to the Catholic faith. So the council decided, in the third canon, if you look at the canons of the Council of Ephesus, the third canon comes in two parts. The first part says that any priest, bishop, deacon who has been deposed by Nestorius and his followers on the grounds of their being orthodox, well, that deposition is invalid, and those are, they're allowed to carry on as bishops, priests, and deacons. That's the first part. The second part says, here's the interesting thing, that if one is under a Nestorian bishop, then one is justified, and indeed urged, to find an orthodox bishop. Now remember that the St Ignatius of Antioch says that the Catholic Church is where the people are gathered around the bishop. Well, you can't be gathered around a heretical bishop, is what the Canon is essentially saying. In order to be Catholic, you have to find a truly Catholic bishop. And so that gives a precedent. It's an important precedent, because it essentially means that if a church ceases to teach the Catholic faith, then the Christian is duty-bound in order to find duty-bound to find an Orthodox priest, an Orthodox bishop. And that's essentially what the Anglican Catholic Church did back in the 1970s. The Episcopal Church of America, in America, and the Canadian Church had made a decision to fundamentally change the sacraments, in particular the sacrament of orders, the ordination. And if you change the nature of the priesthood, then you change the sacraments, you change the teaching of the Church. And it's something that the Christians who met at the Congress of St. Louis in 1977, 1978 knew that they had to leave and find new Orthodox bishops. And they found Albert Chambers, who was a retired Bishop of Springfield, but who had in his lineage, he had been himself, one of his consecrators was Bishop Rowinski of the Polish National Catholic Church. And there was also Bishop Francesco Pagtacan, who had Old Catholic orders himself. And so these two consecrated the first continuing Anglican bishop back in 1978, and from there came the entirety of Anglican Catholic orders. So you can see that we have Catholic orders, and now that we have taken out from our time with the Anglican Communion, we've taken out what is truly Catholic about Anglicanism, and made it part of our being. That includes the 1549 Book of Common Prayer, the Mass. There, the order of the Mass. Someone said, "Oh, it's Zwinglianism dressed up as Catholicism." No, it isn't. You only have to read it carefully with a Catholic mind and see actually it satisfies it's the same. It's based upon the same premises as some of the earlier masses, which was probably Catholic. So that's why we separated from the Anglican Communion. It's as a result of trying to be faithful to the undivided Church, and the faith of the undivided Church has that insistence that we find that we should be under Orthodox bishops, and we should be able to trust that. It doesn't mean that we're allowed to jurisdiction hop, as it is, go from one place to another. We can't make that decision. So if you find yourself under a bishop whom you consider heretical, then you've really got to sit down and say, well, is he heretical? Because if he is, then I've got to go. If he isn't, then I'm duty-bound to stay. We owe a debt of allegiance to our bishops, and unless that bishop is teaching something that is not found in the Catholic faith, we are duty-bound to work to have that bishop. We have to be stable. God gives us bishops we may not like, but giving us a bishop we may not like allows our faith to grow in some way that he decrees. We don't leave a church because it plays happy clappy music. We don't leave a church because the priest is using the wrong colours or dressing badly or whatever. We leave a church because it is not teaching what Christ has always taught us. So we're not allowed to just trot about and find a church that suits our definitions. It has to be a church in which we can grow as people, but according to that one faith of the Holy Catholic Church, of which Eastern Orthodoxy, Roman Catholics, and Anglican Catholics, whether they be in the Anglican Catholic Church or one of its sister churches, we're all a part of it. So, God bless you. God bless you if you are struggling with the church in which you are because you believe that it's teaching something heretical. God bless you that you may see the truth and that you may be given the confidence to stay or the confidence to find a new jurisdiction which will teach you the true faith. God bless you that if you find yourself comfortable in a church, that you may see how to serve it, and to serve it well to the best of your ability in whatever way the Lord has called you. And God bless you that with St. Ignatius, St. Vincent of Lerins, St. Boniface, and all the saints, we may be manifestly that one church in heaven. God bless you, and please pray for me.